Joining me now is her attorney, Vereen. Rod, thank you very much indeed for joining me. That's the obvious question. Do you think that she will be called back at this stage?
Absolutely not. I think that this was just a tactic by the defense to keep her from speaking with the press once she had finished testifying in court last Thursday.
And what do you think about the reaction to her testimony, particularly the charge, I guess, that lays itself at your door, that she was somehow underprepared or under-rehearsed?
And then about 20 seconds...
Well, as you know, Piers, you and I spoke, and I became Rachel's lawyer last week, and that was by request of some individuals that attend church with her that are former law enforcement officers that believe that she was not really prepared to go to Sanford and testify in the case, that she had absolutely no clue as to what was getting ready to take place. It is the prosecution's job to prepare the witness. It was not my job to prepare the witness. I do not know the theory that the prosecution is operating under. I do not know what theories they want to espouse before the jury. It was my job to try to explain to her what the dynamics of the courtroom were going to be. She didn't understand that there was going to be this good cop, bad cop mentality amongst the lawyers, that the prosecution was going to essentially coddle her when the defense attorneys were going to try to rip her apart. And so I tried to get her to understand that this is what's going to happen. You're going to have, the prosecution ask you questions, and they usually go over the questions and answers with the witness to make sure that they understand what they're going to ask them. However, when it comes to the defense, they do not know what the defense is going to ask. They usually try to play the devil's advocate and ask the questions, but in this particular case, trying to decide what questions Don West was going to ask was pretty hard for the prosecution. This is a witness that should have been on the stand for no more than an hour. However, she ended up being on the stand for 5.5 hours over the span of 2 days.
But notwithstanding all that, my gut feeling after watching much of it in real time as it happened was that although she was quite aggressive at times, responding to Mr. West in that way, and clearly didn't really want to be there, that there was a real authenticity to the evidence she was giving that I found very believable. That was just me watching as a viewer.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, her testimony was completely unrehearsed, and it was obvious that it was unrehearsed. The demeanor that she had in the courtroom was a result of the confrontation that she had with Mr. West at the prior depositions of the 2 days that she sat down with him when he tried to browbeat her then. So when she walked into the courtroom, she tried to maintain her composure, and Mr. West did exactly what he did in the depositions, is that he attacked her and put her on the defensive. She's a 19-year-old young lady from the inner city and had no experience in the courtroom whatsoever. She's not trained to be a witness. It took a lot of courage for her to come out of her shell to be a witness. She tried to avoid being in the limelight at all costs. When she first told her mother that she had information, her mother wanted her to sit down and speak with Mr. Crump. She told her mother to tell Mr. Crump no, she didn't want to speak with him. When she decided to write a letter to Sabrina as to what she recalls happening on that night, she used her nickname, Diamond Eugene, because she didn't want to reveal her real name, because she didn't want the media getting a hold of that. She told them that she was 16 years old, again, because she didn't want the media getting a hold to her name. And so she tried to avoid being a witness in this particular case. She didn't ask to be there, but once she was placed under subpoena, she did what she's required to do. She came into that courtroom and she testified. She's been attacked in the court of public opinion, not because of what she said, but because of the way she looks, her demeanor, the fact that she speaks English not as well as some would expect her to speak, even though that is her third language. And they tried to make her look like she was, one, stupid, and two, that, somehow she doesn't know what she's talking about. And I think she defended herself very well.
This one line, Rod, about the creepy ass cracker that got a lot of attention. When you heard her say that, did you think that was a mistake, that it was obviously a racist comment or a very offensive comment?
Well, unfortunately, that is the vernacular of young teenagers these days. And one of the things I found troubling, we just go back, talk about inconsistencies and statements made by the witnesses in this particular case. When I looked at the videotape of Mr. Zimmerman talking about what Trayvon Martin supposedly said to him, when he said something, "I'm going to kill you, homie," and he used the word homie, that is so 10 years ago that I knew right then and there that could not have possibly come out of Trayvon Martin's mouth. "I'm going to kill you, homie." That is not the term, that is not the vernacular used by these young teenagers today. That is not what he would have said. And so I have a problem with some of the testimony that I hear coming out now. You know, and when you really want to talk about some of the inconsistencies, look at the videotape of Mr. Zimmerman when he's talking about what took place out in the alley. When he said that he mounted Trayvon Martin from behind. First of all, Trayvon Martin got shot in the heart. And so it's no way possible that he would have been able to say, oh, you got me, throw his hands up, sit up there for a minute until Zimmerman is able to knock him over to the side, mount him, and according to Mr. Zimmerman on the videotape, he said he straddles Trayvon and stretches his hands from left to right, that he pulls his hands out away from his body. But when the body is found by law enforcement, his hands were tucked up under him. How did that happen? So you want to talk about inconsistencies, just go back and look at the videotape of Mr. Zimmerman when he's given the second or third statement to law enforcement about what took place. So when folks say that, oh, this was a victory for the defense, I doubt it, and I differ.
Well, Vereen, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
My pleasure.